You scared of the coronavirus, bro?
A bitch is scared. I'm a little scared, you know what I'm saying? Like,
We came in here fucking around for like 2 weeks straight. It's real now.
guess what, bitch? Coronavirus!
Everybody's stir crazy and weirded out by this, including me.
Yeah.
I don't dap up everybody.
I'm straight Michelle Obama Barack fist pumps right now.
Yeah, you going?
Coronavirus. Take it easy, just relax. Relax. You're doing great. It all will pass. Let me just tell you something. That's really bad reporting. You gotta be ashamed of yourself.
I just want one pack.
Hello, boys. Find everything you need?
Yep, all set.
Okay, let's see here. Toilet paper?
Toilet paper? Toilet paper? Toilet paper? Toilet paper?
What the fuck is up with COVID-19?
What's going on, guys? It's your boy Bugzy Lavoe. Thank you for coming to Fuck Up with COVID-19, the show where we make sure you're safe, sound, and sanitized. And today we have a very special guest, two very special guests, actually. We have Jillian and her mother, who is also a doctor, Dr. Romero. And their case, the reason I wanted them on the show is because Jillian actually went through all the symptoms. You tested positive and you are now fully recovered, right?
So I actually didn't get a test done yet. Mom is going to do the antibody test on me, but I did experience all the symptoms of corona. So I didn't get tested for it.
Okay, but that led you to believe that you definitely had it, correct?
Can I explain to you why she didn't get the test?
Yeah.
So initially the criteria for testing included a fever.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you had a fever, you were not considered, qualifying for testing.
Right.
Jillian had all symptoms except for the fever.
Okay.
Come to find out that about 15% of cases will have no fever. And yet these are the cases that are more concerning because you can't mount an immune response to basically boil the virus and denature it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those cases of people who don't get a fever can, depending on their other comorbid conditions, their, other illnesses that they may have, could actually make it worse for them in trying to their own immune system to fight it.
Okay. So with that being said, what symptoms was she having that led you guys first to believe that she potentially had it?
So what was it, like a Thursday night or something? I don't remember. I was in
Tuesday all day. You had body aches.
I had these horrible body aches that I really don't get unless I have the flu. And I got the flu, like the seasonal flu, on vacation in Hawaii in December. Mm-hmm. And this was the body pains that I was experiencing were worse than those. And the night before I kind of told my mom, I don't really feel well, but I'm okay. I'll wake up fine or whatever. Then the next day I was like, Mom, these body aches, they're serious. I don't know what's going on. So I was downstairs and I moved all my stuff upstairs. So I was isolated in the guest room. And then came a cough,
sore throat,
and a sore throat. And then it was shortness of breath. And I think that the worst, and I had headaches here and there and whatnot, but I think that the worst thing for me was a shortness of breath. And I wasn't really scared at first until I had the shortness of breath because, it's scary not being able to control what's going on in your body. And luckily, because my mom is a doctor, she had an oxygen concentrator machine. So I had an oxygen mask, and then I had the little tube under my nose for a while.
Baby breathing treatments.
And I did a nebulizer breathing treatment every day. When I started to feel that I was experiencing shortness of breath, I would do the treatment again. And then I started using an inhaler, which I had never used before. So
do you believe that you potentially got it by coming in contact with a person, someone else who had it, or?
Well, so I'm a student at FGCU, and as soon as FGCU decided that they weren't going to have any classes anymore, I came home and to Naples, and I didn't go out other than working in her office. And I think I went to Publix once, and that's pretty much it. So I did have a cousin who lives a couple doors down from me, and her mom lives in the same, or she works in the same building as us. So I took her home the Friday before I started experiencing symptoms. And at that time, that's right when her daughter started experiencing the same symptoms that I was.
Okay.
I really, it's up in the air from where I got it from. But for the most part, I was social distancing.
So basically what that tells us is, because I do believe that that's how she came into contact with this, from someone who was totally asymptomatic, but who was in contact with someone who actually got tested. And she was very ill. She had very high fevers along with all the same symptoms that Jillian had. She was tested because she also had a coworker who had tested positive. And yet her testing came back negative. I think there has been some faulty testing. Not sure if it is operator type of, error, or if it's the testing itself. I know that in many cases, if you've gotten tested through a doctor's office, they'll give you the kit for you to perform the test yourself. And the way that you have to perform this test is by pretty much shoving a Q-tip, a very long Q-tip, up your nose, all the way up into almost, touching your sinus cavity.
Yeah.
And that's very painful. So I don't know how many people are going to be capable of causing themselves that much discomfort in order to do the test the right way. You understand? But her test was negative. Her mother never got sick. And yet that we know of, that's the only contact that Jillian had.
Yeah, because even in office, we weren't seeing any patients that were feeling any upper respiratory problems or that even felt remotely sick. And
we haven't had anyone that, has come into the office, especially on the days where she was only there 2 days during that week, that have reported any symptoms or have been found to be ill at all.
Yeah, that's why I think it's important to have this conversation, because I feel like a lot of people underestimate the virus and they think that if they don't physically see someone with the symptoms, that they're fine to not socially distance and to roam around and come in contact with people. But in her case, she came in contact with someone who potentially was asymptomatic. So I think that's very important to highlight that even if you're looking around and no one looks like they have it, it's still important to take the necessary steps and be cautious.
Yeah. And it really does creep up on you. Like it went from 0 to 100 in like a day with the breathing issues and stuff like that. And I really urge people my age, a lot of people are not taking it as seriously as they should. I still see people on their stories having quarantine parties and having people over, and, it's not something to take lightly. And every time I feel like I have this conversation with someone, they're like, oh yeah, but I'm young and I'm only around young people and whatever. And they're still stuck in this whole mentality that it's only the old people. And so they're not staying close to their parents or their grandparents, but they don't realize like it kills them too. Yeah. And it's scary. And people, the whole idea behind it, that the flu comes every year and stuff and whatever, I've heard that argument too. And it's like, even though there's so many cases of the flu, it's predictable because every year, we can predict how many people are going to get it and the mortality rates, and we have vaccines for it and stuff. COVID-19 is something that came out of nowhere and there's no information on it. We're learning through case studies of people that are getting it now. And so you never know what could come of this, what strains can derive from it and whatnot. So it's really important that people, social distance now so we can have our freedom later.
And a question I have for you, Dr. Romero, would be like, if say, your daughter was very fortunate that you were in the house with her, but say like someone else, if they have it or they're experiencing some of these symptoms and, they can't come in contact with a doctor or anything, is there anything that they can do at home to help them get through it?
Well, hopefully they won't be alone. They'll have someone to help them because there's no way she could have taken care of herself.
No.
And, even though the people who are at major risk are those who are immunocompromised or have comorbid conditions like asthma or COPD or, any heart disease or anything, diabetes, you don't want to get sick. So you have to try to do whatever it is that you can to prevent it. And so far, the only thing that we've seen is that social distancing is what has proven to help diminish the number of new cases, right? But I try to be, very proactive. And since day one, especially because, my 83-year-old mother lives with us who's diabetic, and her sister, who's 81, has been visiting with us and has been unable to leave because of, the circumstances. And she's also diabetic. So it was very important that I try to keep the rest of my family well, as well as myself, because I needed to take care of her. So, protective measures, I wore a mask every time I went into a room, and I wore gloves. And immediately when I came out of the room, I wiped everything down. But I also washed my hands and, kept the mask I reused. So I kept it out of, everyone else's reach. And there are things that we can take that help to boost our immune system. Zinc has been found to be very beneficial in decreasing viral replication. So taking a zinc supplementation, whether you're able to do it through Coldies or airborne or, there are multiple zinc supplements over the counter, and that you take somewhere between 15 and 30 milligrams daily. That will help in boosting not only your immune system, but in decreasing viral replication, right? Vitamin C is very important because it's an antioxidant.
It's not just orange juice.
Right. And it can help to boost, your immune function as well. There are things like black elderberry extract, that comes in by the trade name of Sambucus or Sambucol, not the alcoholic, Sambuca, not that one, right? But, for boosting immune system, that is a very good one to take because it does help to, it does work as an antiviral, all right? And vitamin D is also really good in helping to boost your immune system. And many people, even here in Florida, are vitamin D deficient because if we're out in the sun, we're wearing sunscreen, or there are not a lot of foods that are rich in vitamin D either, so we can't really get it in our food sources. But those two things, the vitamin D and the black elderberry extract, are things that should you suspect that you do have COVID, you need to discontinue because that can actually make matters worse. Okay?
So just to repeat it, you said the black elderberry and the vitamin D discontinue if you think you have it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that can actually increase inflammatory factors that can make it more difficult for you to be able to fight the virus.
Okay. Something else that I've read a lot of conflicting reports on have been about ibuprofen. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. So ibuprofen, it's an anti-inflammatory medication. And ibuprofen, whether it comes in the form of Advil or Motrin, no, Tylenol is no. That's acetaminophen. So Aleve is naproxen, but is also an anti-inflammatory, right? It's classified under the NSAIDs, all right? If you have elevated blood pressure, or if you have any problems with, or have had any problems with congestive heart failure, this is contraindicated already. If you have any kidney issues, it's already contraindicated because it could actually increase your volume retention. So it can exacerbate congestive heart failure. And that's why they're telling you. So as far as I know, and there's nothing that I've read that says that, that you can't take ibuprofen if you have no other disease states. However, the fact that if you're having shortness of breath and there's any possibility that your, that oxygen exchange can be compromised, then certainly that's something that you should not be taking, okay? Because then it can precipitate you to retain fluid in your lungs, basically because it's going to back up from your heart, right? So that potential is there. But otherwise, in a healthy individual who's not worried that they're having any lung compromise, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Now, last question wrapping up is something that I've been seeing in the news, and I just kind of wanted to get more info on it if possible, is that they're saying that there's actually people who can get it twice. Is there some truth to that?
So if you have had it and you develop antibodies, the idea is that if you've had it, you're going to develop antibodies, right? You know, you can't get the same one twice, right? The virus can mutate, and you can get reinfected with a different strain.
And there are already more than one strain.
Okay.
Well, you know, coronavirus is not something that's new. You know, it was first identified, you know, back as far as
SARS or MERS.
Yeah, and there's been different versions, you know. So, you know, back as far as 2002, and I'm not sure, but maybe even before that. So it's not something that's new. It's the strain that's new. So can you get a different type of strain that's a coronavirus? Yes, absolutely. However, I would tell you that you can't just be pompous and think that because I've had it, I can't get it again. Because if you've ever had shingles, you're not supposed to get shingles again. And there have been many cases where you'll see shingles a second or third time. So you can never say never with these things.
I mean, I'm still staying at home. I'm still social distancing. My sister and my mom have been the only ones that have gone out of the house, and they wear masks and gloves when they go out. And I have no plans of going out and thinking that I have this armor on now because I had it or may have had it or whatever it may be. But I think that the most important thing is people just need to stay home.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's not sticking to certain people, but people need to stay home.
And, you know, if you have the ability, as soon as the antibody test, and there are many companies out there that have put antibody testing out already. Not so sure about whether the ones they have are highly sensitive and specific, even though they may report that. But as soon as we have reliable antibody testing, I will get her tested. And, you know, I think we're all going to be tested just to make sure. But again, you know, it should not be a false sense of security one way or the other.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Jillian. Thank you, Dr. Romero. You guys have been a huge help. Thank you guys for coming on. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we are out.